Hello, welcome to Thursday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. And on screen today we have a puzzle that comes very highly recommended indeed from none other than Christoph Seeliger, one of the world's great constructors and setters. He has emailed to say we really must do this puzzle on the channel, and it's by the constructor DiMono, who has appeared before, and I remember that puzzle. It was extremely good. So that combined with the fact that Christoph's recommended this one suggests we're in for another treat today. It's every day as a treat on Cracking the Cryptic. Now, before we kick off with this puzzle, two things to mention. Firstly, on our Kickstarter campaign at the moment, this is our Kickstarter campaign to create Cracking the Cryptic's Greatest Hits, the book. It's going amazingly well. We are heading up towards the stretch goal at which you guys will get to basically be able to vote on 10 puzzles you want included in the book, over and above the ones that Mark and I have selected. And we've also, yesterday actually, we have released a new type of pledge that's available. Now, I hasten to add, this is not something we've done of our own volition. This is something that has been requested by some extremely generous people out there who wanted to pledge more than the minimum amount and wondered what they might receive over and above books for that. So we have a limited number of these $150 pledges now, and if you do pledge at that level, not only do you get 3 books, you're also going to get a named shout out on the channel, and obviously our extreme gratitude. So we totally appreciate is not for everybody, but we wanted to do something because we have had requests from a number of people to do this. So that's what we've done. Go and check it out if you are interested. Now, apart from that, those of you who are patrons of the channel will, I hope, be checking out this 5-video series that we've created to talk through Scott Strossal's amazing puzzle hunt, which we released at the start of October. It's well worth checking out. If you're a patron, do get yourselves over onto Patreon and you'll find the links to the videos there. We hope we've done justice to what was an incredible series of puzzles. How hard was that Sudoku puzzle? Very, very hard indeed is the answer. Now, let's get on with DiMono's puzzle today. What have we got? Well, it's normal, completely regular killer Sudoku. So normal Sudoku rules, and then in cages, you can see, for example, in this cage here, these 4 cells have to sum to 28 without repeating a digit as usual. So very standard. Do have a go. I'm told this is reasonably challenging, so I don't know quite what that means yet, but I'm looking forward to finding out. The way to play is to click the link under the video. With that, I get to play. Let's get cracking, and let's get cracking on what do we do here. So we've got, well, the most obvious thing we've got in this grid is an extreme number of 28 cages in 4 cells. So we've got a whole load of Tetris cages, haven't we? In fact, we've got loads of these. I don't really know why I'm highlighting them, but I'm just going to highlight them and see if they make a pattern. Not a pattern that I recognise. Now, I know a couple of things about 28 cages in 4 cells. The first is that they've always got to have an 8 and a 9 in them. The second is that you can only do or make 28 in 4 cells in 2 different ways. You've either got 9847 or 9856. Now, I just wonder whether... I'm just wondering, actually, whether we can try and identify where the 8s and 9s live in these 28 cages. Because, for example, if I look at this Tetris shape here, it's clear you can't have an 8 and a 9 in this domino, because if you do put an 8 and a 9 in this domino, you can't put an 8 and a 9 in this tetromino, and you need to have an 8 and a 9 in every 28 cage. So, and the same thing is true. Yeah, this is interesting. Look, you also can't have an 8 and a 9 in this domino, because that will break this 28 cage. So in this shape here, there is exactly one 8 or 9 in this domino, and exactly one of 8 or 9 in this domino. And that means that's interesting. That is interesting, because that means, of course, that, if this, for example, contained an 8, in this shape, this square would have to be an 8. So I'm going to label that. We know that this is an 8 or a 9. I don't know which one it is. And the same is true, presumably, of this square. This is an... Yeah, the same is true of this square. This is also an 8 or a 9, but it's not the same as this 8 or 9. Because if this has an 8 here, this will be an 8. That will mean there's a 9 here, and therefore this would be a 9. So let's use a different colour. Let's use purple for 1. So we know that this is an 8 or a 9, and we know this is a different, this is the other. Now this is really interesting, because now doesn't this square have to be purple? Because in this 28 cage, the purple number, wherever it is, has to appear in that domino, which means it's not in those 3 squares, which means it's here. Which means it's here in this 28. Which means it's here in this 28. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, good grief. This is just such a clever idea. And obviously I'm nowhere near even a pencil mark yet, but look, this 28 sees 3 of the cells in this Tetris shape, so that must also be purple. So there's a purple... Yeah, okay, so there's a purple in one of these 2 cells, but we also know that there's a purple in one of those 2 cells. So which one of these can be purple? It's got to be this one. Now, the central box is interesting because it's got no 28s in it. So I know that there's a purple in one of those 2. Aha. I don't think it's that useful, but let's think about this 12 cage. That 12 cage can never contain an 8 or a 9 because it will blow the 12 cage open. Because obviously the minimum I can make 3 cells of the 12 cage add up to would be 6 if I made them 1, 2 and 3. So the maximum digit you can have in a 12 cage of size 4 is a 6. You cannot have an 8 or a 9. So where does the purple go in the central box? It can't go there by Sudoku from this one, and it can't go there, and it can't go in those 2 because it's a 12 cage, so it goes in the 15 cage. I'll label them both purple just so I can keep track. Now that means where does the purple go in box 6? I think it's got to go here, exactly here. And there's got to be a purple in one of those as well. So there we go, we've basically managed to discern the disposition of purple, even though we don't know what purple is. But that might be useful, because, why might it be useful? Well, is that going to help us at least discern something about where red goes? Maybe. So there must be a red in one of those 3. Let's just highlight reds. So there's a red in one of these 3, so there's a red in one of those 2. So there's a red in one of those 2. There's no red here, so there must be a red in one of those 2. Oh, this is not going very well. There must be a red in one of those 2. Ah, no, that's wrong. Well, it's right, but it's inexact, because look, there must be a red in one of those 3 squares of column 3. So that can't be red. So we actually know that this is the red one. We know that one of those is red, look. So those 2 can't be red, so this is red, and that, oh, this is amazing. So now look, now this has to be red because this can't be red, which means this can't be red. And we are getting, and now where does the red go in that one? It can only go here. We know the 12 can't have a red in it. Oh, that's a shame, it's not actually... but here we can't put a red and a purple in a 15 because that would mean we're putting an 8 and a 9 in a 15, which 8 and 9 add to 17. That's not going to work. We can't put -2 into the other cell. So there must be a red in one of those 2 cells. Oh, not one of those. Well, we've got a red up here, of course, so actually we get this one in the middle. 2. So we've actually placed somehow 7 reds, 7 purples, and we've got these sort of X-wing arrangements left. Now, well, so presumably what we have to do now is to try and... Do we have to determine the parity of each of these 28 cages? Because we know that each 28 cage is either going to be 9847 or 9856. So the reason I think that's interesting is that if we look at box 4, we can see that whatever colour this one is, if this is 47, this one would have to be the opposite. So I'm going to use more colours. I'm going to use blue and grey, maybe? No, grey is a bit too close to purple. Blue, maybe that one. Ooh, that's also not great. Maybe blue and green. I'm not sure, sorry, what's the best thing to do here. So I'm sorry if I'm not picking the right colours from a colour blindness perspective. But look at this. This is very interesting because whatever colour green represents, whatever numbers green represents, in this 28 cage here, this square would have to be blue, which means that square has to be blue. Which, I'm not sure what that does, but it felt profound. Oh yes, it is profound, because now what's this? This has got 1 blue in the column, so this must be green. Which means that, yeah, that means this 28 cage now must be a blue 28 cage, which makes that blue. And one of these is blue, one of these is purple, but I don't know which way round. Okay. Oh my goodness me, look at that. Look at that cage. That is a very interesting cage. Why is this cage interesting? Well, this adds to 11. Now in this box, in box 2 at the moment, we have, I don't know what the order is, but we've definitely got an 8, we've definitely got a 9. So this is not 2-9, it's not 3-8. It's not blue, which is either 5-6 or 4-7, but whichever it is, this is the opposite colour to blue. So this is green. And why does that matter? Look at what this does in the middle box. This puzzle is beautiful. Not only because of the way I've coloured it, but because of the logic. Because now, where does green go in box 5? Well, it can't be on a red. We know red is an 8 or a 9. So this square must be green. This square must be green by Sudoku. And therefore this is the purple, which means this is purple and this becomes blue, because we know that this 28 cage is a blue cage. Now, what on earth does that mean? That means that, yes, this is important, because now look at this cage. What is the parity of this 28 cage? Well, there's now 2 greens in row 6. So this 28 cage must be a blue 28 cage, and this domino here consists of 1 red square and 1 blue square. And that, oh, look at this on the middle. Look at this on the middle box. We know that there are 2 blues in this run of 3 squares. There are 2 blues in this run of 3 squares. So there must be 2 blues in this run of 3 squares. But the central square is red. So those 2 squares are blue. Now that might matter for the 12 cage, you know, because it does matter. It does matter. Let's look at the options. I'm going to finally put some digits in the grid here. We know that these green and blue squares are either 4-7 or 5-6. We don't know which. But look, we can never put a 7 in a 12 cage of size 4. Let's get rid of the 7. Now, can either of these be 6? Well, they used to be possible for them to be 6 before we knew that there was one of the other colour in the 12 cage. So if I put 6 in one of these two squares, the minimum the other colour will be is a 4, which means I'd also have to put 2 1s into this cage, which is not going to work. Oh my goodness, what on earth did that do? I just pressed undo and it went mad. Oh dear. Will it? I don't know what that's done. I don't know what something went absolutely crazy there. I think I'm going to have to pause the video and try and reconstruct where I was. Just 1 second, sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. I've had to basically reload the puzzle and get up to where I just was. And so I'm not going to try and hit undo now, but I think the point that I was just making in the video was that we can't have a 7 in these squares and we can't have a 6 either, because if we do, it's going to break. Basically the 12 cage is going to be impossible. Now if you can't have a 7 and a 6 in these two squares, you've got to have 4 and 5, which means these squares have to be 1 and 2, and this square will have to be a 6 7, this square will have to be a 6 7. And look how this is just sublime, because now this 15 cage all of a sudden is the key, I think, to us getting a digit, because I know purple is either an 8 or a 9. Well, if it's a 9 and this is a 6 or a 7, we can't put 0 in this square. So the only way this will work and that this can be a positive number is if we put 1 in here. This will have to be 8, this will have to be 6, and you can see, look what this is going to do. Now we're actually going to get all of these digits. The 1 is going to tell us the 1 and the 2. We now know red is 9, so wherever there's a red, we can fill in 9. Let's just get rid of those. Wherever there's a purple, we can fill in 8. And this square, to complete this box, has got to be a 3. And all of a sudden, from having nothing in the grid, we've got a great deal in the grid. But more importantly, still, we also know that all green squares are 5s and 6s. And all blue squares are 4s and 7s. And this 7 is sorting out this. Look, that's got to be a 4. Therefore, this has got to be a 7. This is communicating through the medium of the 28 cage. This is a 4. And this 6 is forcing this to be a 6 and this to be a 5. Can we keep going with this? There now must be a 6 in one of these two squares. And feel like this, yeah, okay, we know that there's a second blue in here, don't we? Now that being the case, this square must be green and it can't be 6. So this is, not only do we know this is 5 and we know it's green, but we know that now this is a 7-9 pair, not a 7-9 pair, sorry, a 6-5 pair, because we know that this is a 5-6 version of the 28 cage. If this is a 6-9 pair, this square has to be a 5, this has to be a 6. This is one of these squares is blue, so these two squares must both, sorry, one of these squares is green, what am I talking about? So both of these squares must be blue. I think the undo issue has confused me as well. Now this means these have got to be 4 and 7, which we can put in. So 4 by Sudoku has to go in the bottom right hand corner of the grid. 4 has to be in one of these two squares. 7, oh yeah, where does 7 go in box 8? It can only go here by Sudoku. So these two squares are 2 and 3, which we can also do. That means those squares at the top are 1, 3 and 4. That means this square is 7. This square is 4. I mean, this is just a remarkable puzzle. This is 3 by Sudoku. This is a 1-2 pair. If we look along this row, we know those two squares are 7 and 9, and there's a 7 already in column 8. So we're actually, all of a sudden, the puzzle is completely breaking open. That gives me the 9 and the 6, which I've been after for a long time. So the 6 now is green. The 7 is blue. We've done all 9s, all 8s. We're not far away from having done all 4s and 7s, I think. Must be a 7 in one of those two squares. Interestingly, look at 6s in box 1. They are locked into the same two positions that the 7s are locked into. So this square has to be a 1 or a 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 down there. I'm wondering whether it's going to be this. Are we going to be able to do something with the 11s and the 9s here? Ah. I tell you what, if we could just... This 11 cage must be... Well, it's either blue or it's green. Is there a way for us to tell? Greens can't go there. So 2 of these 3 squares are green. Yeah, we can. We can do it. Because look, let's think about where the green colours go in box 1. We've got 2 greens in row 3 and 2 greens in column 3, so none of those squares can be green, which means 2 of these 3 squares must be green, which means there must be at least 1 green in this domino. Now that means we can't have those squares being green. If they can't be green, they have to be blue. So they have to be 4 and 7. So not only do we know they're blue, but we actually know the order. And now this 9 cage can't be 4, 5, can't be 2, 7, can't be 1, 8. So it must be 3, 6, and there's a 3 here. And I think we're almost... Now that means that's a 7, this is a 1, this is a 6. I mean, this... How rare is it that you find a killer Sudoku that is completely original? I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, this. 5s and 2s we can do. We can get rid of the 4 and the 3 there. This square's got to be a 1 or a 4 by Sudoku, but there's a 4 in the box, so that's a 1, that's a 4. This 1 here is telling us the order of the 3 and the 1. That should be a 2. Therefore, I should be able to write in that as a 5, I think. We still need a 2 and a 3 into those squares. Let's put them in. But I actually think we've almost done the puzzle now. I might be wrong, but it does feel like it's sort of yielded its secrets. I do want to go through though and make sure I label all the colours because I'm pedantic like that. That one's got to be blue. These 2 have got to be green. That one's got to be blue. That one's got to be green. And you can see we need 1, 2 and 3 down here, which we're going to be able to resolve. 3, 1, 2. This square should be a 5, I think. This square therefore ought to be 6. It still looks like it's working. 5s and 6s are green. That should be blue. And we've just got to finish off the last boxes. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and 6 to place. So we've got 1 and 2 into these 2 squares, which we can order like that. 3 and 6 into those squares. I think that's the puzzle finished. Let's just make sure we've got everything highlighted. So only 1s, 2s and 3s should be in white. No, that 7's wrong. That's got to be blue. And there you go. Let's click check. Yes, that's absolutely wonderful. I have to say, I loved that. Let me know in the comments if you're as stunned by that as I am. A quite unique solve, and that is so rare in Sudoku nowadays. So DiMono, huge plaudits, my friend. That is a brilliant, brilliant puzzle. Come back later for another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.